had a lady that I was talking to who actually burst into tears when she realised that this overwhelming piece of work that she had to do had just been solved by utilising artificial intelligence in a very productive way. You will get your light bulb moment at some point, a bit like the internet. It doesn't matter if you kind of resisted using the internet for many, many years. No doubt you're using it now. We're starting to experiment with agentic solutions. We're looking at workflows. There's a lot of people looking at the workflows that we do within real estate or construction and saying, actually, is that the right workflow in the first place? Why are we doing that? Oh, we've always done that, you know? And I think that's quite healthy, that people are now challenging that. Anyone can build these things now. It's so easy to create a fine-tuned large language model. So start there. It's something you can do with your own data.
But a lot of teams that have built their own ones of those haven't had good usage and adoption. I wonder what's different. How did you make it work?
You've got to make it accessible. You've got to give people training. AI change has to come from the top. It has to have like CEO buy-in. But they've then also got to let go and let it come from the bottom, because that's where you get loads of good ideas. It's not going anywhere. The pace of change is only going to increase. The longer you leave it, the longer the gap will become. Nothing beats doing it, just getting on with it. A lot of them are free or get free packages, just play around with it.
Welcome to Bricks, Bytes and Bold Moves. I'm Johnny Morris, your host, and today I am joined by James. James is the global head of AI and data at Gleeds and a leading voice in digital transformation in construction project management. He's got 2 decades of work behind him at Gleeds. He's a chartered quantity surveyor and an FRICS fellow, and has been recognized as one of Data IQ's top 100 people in data, which a list I've never made, which I'm not going to be jealous of, although I am a little jealous of. You're also the host of Project Flux, James, and author of its newsletter. Maybe you could start by giving our listeners a brief introduction to what Project Flux is all about.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here. So Project Flux was really born out of a frustration that there was so much going on in this world of AI, and I was really struggling to keep up with the constant movement and the constant news. And I was subscribed to a lot of newsletters, and I had my Feedly kind of link going through. And on the weekends, I'd kind of try and catch up as best I could. And then I thought, actually, I could just turn this into a little newsletter. So it started life as a LinkedIn newsletter, put it out there, and got a lot of really good feedback. So I thought, actually, let's make this into something a bit better. So went onto a different platform, the Beehive platform, and it's just grown from there really organically. And then we decided, lots of people were saying you should do a podcast. So we started the podcast about 6 months after the newsletter started. And that's been a real pleasure, you know, being able to talk to amazing people. And we get all types, you know, we get academics, we get consultants, we get authors. And
I actually listened to your first ever podcast. At the time it was released.
That was ropey.
Well, we all start somewhere. I remember thinking this is pretty solid. I mean, genuinely, then as well, the sort of AI news concept podcasts were all quite fresh and a bit rough around the edges, right?
Yeah, and you learn it. So I think when you look back at anything, it's you want to. It'll be worse, I think, if you listen back to it and it was exactly the same as it is now. You want it to improve, but it's been a fantastic journey. So that's where it came out from, and it's just grown from there. And then now we've started the blog, and we've got the website, which is projectflux.ai. And I call it my blessing and my curse, because it's my blessing because it means I'm constantly having to know what's going on and having to keep up to date. It's my curse because, you know, it is the work and I can't sort of stop. So I'm going on holiday this week and I'm going to have to keep monitoring things because it's amazing what you can miss in a week.
Quite, yes. Yeah. It's interesting not being able to unplug from the news stream. Is somewhat of a curse, I think.
Well, yeah, I say it's my curse, but I wouldn't do this if I didn't love it. So it's not really a curse at all, actually.
Hearing you talk about that and knowing a lot of the work you do in Gleeds is about kind of education and championing, it sounds like you've got a very big educator theme in all of the things you do. Yeah, I think it's... The tech, I always say, kind of takes care of itself, you know. The right tools will kind of rise to the top eventually. The thing that we've got to do as consultants in particular is make sure that we've got the skills to use them. And that gap can become very big very, very quickly if we don't make sure that we understand that it's our responsibility to know how to use these tools. So the biggest kind of
issue that I face is people within the industry, and that can be real estate, but it can also be construction. And to be honest, it can be law or any other kind of consultancy industry, is this feeling that this is nothing to do with me. Like, this is something for the tech people to do. And what I'm trying to do as best I can is spread the word that this is incumbent on all of us to understand this technology, and not even just for our work, for our lives. It's not going anywhere. The pace of change is only going to increase. And the longer you leave it, the longer the gap will become, and it'll be harder and harder to kind of get on that bus. So I really feel like we've got this opportunity, and I just want people to grasp it. And there's been some incredible stories along the way where I've seen people sort of grasp it and understand how to use it. I had one story where I had a lady that I was talking to who actually burst into tears when she realised that this overwhelming piece of work that she had to do had just been solved by utilising artificial intelligence in a very productive way. And you saw that emotion, and you realise, okay, this is freeing up someone's life. They were probably carrying that anxiety home with them, and it was impacting other parts of their lives. And you realise, well, okay, this is what the power of this technology can do, notwithstanding all the dangers and the security risk and all the other things that no doubt we'll talk about. Actually, at the heart of it, this is about freeing people up so we can all become more human.
It's that emotional response to giving someone, I always think of it, if you give someone the power to do more or solve a problem they've not been able to solve or make an unmanageable workload manageable, has such a raw emotional response that it certainly feels like you've really won on a day where you're speaking to someone and you see them go through that journey, right?
Absolutely, because no one wants to go out and do a bad job. No. And I think the reason people do a bad job is because they become overwhelmed, and they just struggle. A lot of it's to do with organisation, and actually there's a lot of tools out there that can help with that. So you see I call it the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
The light bulb moment is an interesting thing because it happens to people at different points. So there's a lot of people like myself who got the light bulb moment with artificial intelligence very early on.
Yeah.
I was like, this is obvious to me what's going to happen. And there's other people who probably haven't had their light bulb moment yet. Maybe they'll get it during listening to this podcast. But the point is, it doesn't matter.
I'd be so moved by the story of the emotional journey of the people we work with.
Well, it might be, but it really doesn't matter, because the point is you will get your light bulb moment at some point, a bit like the internet. It doesn't matter if you kind of resisted using the internet for many, many years. No doubt you're using it now because it would be impossible to live a life in the Western world without the internet or the world in general now. And I think the same thing will happen with artificial intelligence. So it's a huge, I call it a superpower if you can utilize it now, because there's parts of your life that you can really, really kind of supercharge.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but it feels like a stream, maybe a strobe light rather than a light bulb. Because as the technology is changing, I feel like I often have to quite radically reappraise my kind of estimation of like what's going to happen when, what does it mean, what's going to change. Like, and, for us, we're building technology. We're all about user experience and how you kind of integrate this technology into enterprises. So when you get surprised, for example, by a load of models popping up that are much better at coding than you expect, which happened to me recently, you kind of have to reassess the next 18 months of your plans.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, are we integrating enough of that into the product? What can we do faster now? And then the really fun questions are like, does that change how the user experience should be? Do you need to package? Are we now at a level of intelligence where you need to package things differently?
Yeah.
Which is all fun problems to solve.
Yeah.
But you do have to keep on top of it.
You do. And like when the reasoning models came up, that was a whole paradigm shift. And I think the way these artificial intelligence is emerging is it's not like a straight line. It's like every so often
it's very jagged, isn't it?
It's jagged. And
in different fields, and just like that's the thing that I think. Because I would argue one of the most universally disappointing models in the last year was GPT 4.5, which is OpenAI's model that was kind of had a fancy name. They marketed it loads. It was like the next generation, but then it wasn't very good at things like coding. But it was really lovely at writing.
And then it did loads of funny things. It started, and this is the weird thing. So you can build a solution that harnesses one of these models, and then they can change the model.
Grokker's just done it.
It's just done
this week, right? Of like
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
having many problems with their models,
Yeah.
while supposedly reaching new benchmarks. But actually, is it a step back? Probably, yeah, for them.
Yeah, those benchmarks, I always take it with a pinch of salt,
Yeah.
because what does it actually mean in real life? And if it starts interacting with you differently, and you'd set up a system which utilizes one of those models, and now all of a sudden all the prompts don't work.
Oh, yeah,
It doesn't
quite.
matter how good the
Yeah.
benchmark is. You've got to go back in and change all the system prompts.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting, and I think it keeps us all on our toes at the moment about what's coming next.
And James, how do you bring this into Gleeds? Like, how does what kind of initiatives are you most proud of at the moment? Most excited about what's going on?
Yeah, so in terms of the tech, there's lots of things we're working on. That we're doing a lot of the things that you wouldn't be surprised. Fine-tuned large language models. Yeah. We're deploying Copilot, which is getting better and better. And I think Copilot's quite an important step for people, because it puts people in a familiar space.
Yeah.
The Microsoft environment, it's safe. It's a good place for people to get started with it. And it had a bit of a shaky start, but it is getting better.
I feel like a bit of a shaky start is somewhat playing it down. I think you're the first person to come on the podcast and say nice things about Copilot.
Well, I only say nice things in terms of, I think it's still a good introduction for people. It definitely did have a shaky start, and
it's very hard to implement correctly, though.
It is.
There's like, for example, I was talking to someone that had just had Copilot rolled out to them, or rather than rolled out on them, let's say. But they had the organization had decided that they didn't want any recording or transcription in Teams. And that's the immediate mega payoff use case from my perspective of like that everyone can benefit from. If you can get good meeting notes from all of your online meetings, that's a massive win.
Exactly.
And sort of a level 1 first step, anyone can do it, get benefit from.
And that's how you turn those people who may be a bit kind of against AI straight onto it, because that's a use case that everyone can understand. So, but I think the mistake a lot of people have made with Copilot, and let's put Microsoft's naming conventions and the way they rolled it out to one side, but a lot of people have it's been implemented by the IT team without any training. All of a sudden they've come in one day and Copilot's there. The way we're doing it is slightly different. We're doing it in cohorts.
I've heard quite a lot of I got invited to a compulsory sort of town hall, and no one actually spent any time telling us what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're doing differently. It's all around the training. So there's two things that people have to do. They have to do the mandatory training. So we understand what to use Copilot for. And then the other thing is we ask them to do some feedback at the end of each quarter about what is the ROI, because it's very hard to measure ROI on any AI software. So if you actually tell them, we want to know, how is this improving your efficiency and productivity, and give us some case studies, because then we can actually measure the impact of these things. And then that is the lead on to the stuff that we're building in-house. And now we're starting to experiment with agentic solutions. We're looking at workflows. What that's actually prompted is a look at the workflows, right? Because the whole agentic kind of wave is based on there being a coherent workflow in the first place. And I think what that is prompting now is a lot of people looking at the workflows that we do within real estate or construction and saying, actually, is that the right workflow in the first place? Why are we doing that? Oh, we've always done that, And I think that's quite healthy, that people are now challenging that, saying, well, actually, if we were going to start this again from scratch, would we do it like that? And the answer is very often no.
I see this journey constantly, and the way I see it play out, because we are all about workflows, right? So we are living that agentic workflow kind of dream, sometimes like that. But what we often see is when you start, and maybe you start with a use case that's quite high volume, quite industrialized, quite easy to break out into a workflow, like extracting data from loan documents, for example, which doesn't really happen at scale otherwise. But once people kind of see an active kind of AI-driven workflow, they jump a step from, hey, I'm thinking about we could do exactly the same thing on analyzing offering memorandum or writing IC memo or kind of due diligence, to, hey, maybe we should do that process differently.
Yeah.
It kind of unlocks the imagination, I think, and gets people much more excited.
It does. It does. And I've seen that, people, when the penny drops, light bulb moment again, but we've come up with great ideas, which there was something I was talking about earlier today about this whole kind of AI change has to come from the top in terms of it has to have like CEO buy-in, but they've then also got to let go and let it come from the bottom, because that's where you get loads of good ideas. The people, on the field effectively doing the work, they're the ones where we get so many good use cases from. So those two things together work really, really well. Those people knowing that they've got the support from the top to be able to use their creativity to come up with solutions, and then come to our team to build those solutions. And that's the other thing we're looking at with Copilot, the Copilot Studio. We talked about agentic workflows, but agentic workflows actually at a very simple level, if you just want to build an agent, you can do that very easily within Copilot. So people think, agentic workflows, is a very kind of complicated process you've got to go through. Not always. Sometimes it can be a very simple agent within
Depends
Copilot
on what
Studio.
you're trying to do, right?
Exactly.
And I think I always think of this as a generalist versus a specialist kind of debate of like, if you've got HR workflows are quite good examples. If you want to check an inquiry against your HR policy about your parental leave, for example, that's probably a really nice kind of few-step agentic workflow that could respond straight away. Maybe you wrap in a chatbot, maybe you don't. But when you get into the real estate world and the construction world, suddenly instead of a policy which is like 2 pages of A4, you have like, 500 megabytes of technical drawings and 300 tab spreadsheets and some handwritten notes. And that's where you have to get really into the kind of point of like, how am I going to build something specialist, working with someone like us or building yourself, or like the big things, I think always.
Exactly, yeah. It's separating it out, so you're focusing the time on the more complicated stuff, on the complicated workflows.
But I would, so for me, I think that you've kind of articulated the kind of top strategy setting and the kind of bottom up, like understanding use cases, educating people. I totally agree with those two, but I would add a third, which I think is really important, is keeping a really clear eye on the sort of cross-functional bigger workflows that are actually core to your business and the high ROI. I think that should be owned by CIO, head of innovation, someone like yourself, as the kind of, okay, we know that we're getting a hard to quantify, but we've got good feels about it. We're helping everyone with whatever our tool of choice is to be a bit better. But actually, we know that if we can do we've got too much capital to deploy, or it's taking too long to estimate project costs. If we know that if we can make that fast or cheap or easy, it actually changes the business outcomes. That's where we should be focusing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's really important as well. And actually, a lot of our best solutions that we've rolled out have come from things like hackathons, where we've come up with a challenge and we brought it to a hackathon, and we're able to kind of.
It's all a sort of ecosystem, right? Because you can't start on day one with sort of an ironclad list and impose it on people. You normally start, and then you get feedback, you learn, and then you sort of zero in on the right place.
You've got to be agile. I mean, it's number one, because it's changing so much, and you've got to respond to the feedback. There's been a lot of kind of things that we've experimented with, which I thought was a dead cert that failed, and then vice versa. And sometimes,
what's your most disappointing use case?
So one of the things that we thought would be really amazing was, and it's not, some of these aren't full-on failures, they're just not as successful as I thought they would be, was a material price tracker to understand what's happening with price tracking in real time. And we developed that, and it was really good. And we actually won a hackathon with that solution. And putting myself back in my quantity surveying days, I would have loved that tool. Have in front of me real-time data that I could argue the toss with a contractor in real time.
So that would have given you like a live feed on changes in price of concrete?
Exactly. So when the contractor's trying to pull the wool over your eyes as a QS saying, concrete's gone up by 20%, you can say, no, it hasn't.
Look at this.
But this goes back to, it's not my point earlier, it's about education, because it's not about the tech. So that tech now exists, and it has got some traction, but not as much as I would have liked. And it's weird. It's like, why wouldn't you use that? And I think it's not to do with the tech. It's people are very stuck in their ways. and they take a while to change. So we're starting to get some traction with it, but I was a bit disappointed with how long it's taken to get some traction. And there's been some other ones which are just, incredible, like the simple stuff. Like
what's the biggest surprise? Cause
it's not really a surprise, but like it's kind of obvious in a way. But the one that just absolutely blows everything else away is a really simple, fine-tuned large language model on your data.
Yeah,
it's really easy to implement, and anyone can do it. And what's important about that is giving people a credible alternative. That we call it assist.
Yeah.
But it's also important to give people a credible alternative so that they don't start using ChatGPT for work-related activities, and then you get the whole shadow AI issue.
That's a really interesting angle, isn't it? The number of like lockdowns, I think, that have actually almost forced people into using ChatGPT on a non-corporate account, is.
But if you don't give people a credible alternative, then they've got no choice but to do that. So that's the whole rationale. What we're doing is, and then what I say to like SMEs and one-man bands, anyone can build these things now. It's so easy to create a fine-tuned large language model. So start there. It's something you can do with your own data. So it's not really a surprise, but it's just the numbers are huge, because everyone's familiar now with chatbot and how to use it.
And that would be a sort of internal kind of corporate chatbot that's kind of got the benefit of the data that Gleeds works with.
It's using RAG technology and just, fine-tuning it. We turn the temperature down so it doesn't hallucinate. It's safe. It's all held within our environment, et cetera, et cetera. And
so I feel like a lot of teams that have built their own ones of those haven't had good usage and adoption. I wonder what's different. Like, how did you make it work?
Well, I think you've got to make it accessible. You've got to give people training. So this comes with, so what we do to go with everything is training to go with it. And that can be training in different ways as well. So not just like a one size fits all. So it might be lunch and learns, might be 1-day courses. I think with any large language model, it's all about the prompting, right? We're still at a point where most people are using ChatGPT or any other models like it's a glorified Google, and then they wonder why they get really, really bad results. Because we've spent 20 years getting used to saying things like...
To Googling stuff.
And trying to shorten things by saying nearest restaurant to home, that doesn't work.
And all of a sudden you have to be verbose.
You've got to be verbose, and you've got to give it context, you've got to give it a role. So there's a really good acronym that I use, and I got it from a fantastic book that I read called The AI-Driven Leader by a guy called Jeff Woods, who we had on our podcast actually. And it's CRIT, which is really, really simple. Everyone remembers this. C is context. Always give the context. The more the better. And take yourself away from the Google world in terms of searching. Just give it as much information as you can, and this also includes uploading documents. R is the role. And you can be really stupid. You can say things like, "Be the best quantity surveyor in the world." And this is the killer. Was the I? The I is the interview. This is where you say, "I want you to interview me, one question at a time." So that you get more context, and that flips it. That's where the light bulb moment has gone off for a lot of people, because all of a sudden they realise, okay, I'm having a conversation now with these chatbots. It's not a one-way kind of street. You're actually starting a conversation and a dialogue, which can come up with, with those. Say if you say to it, ask me 3 questions, one question at a time. First 2 might be just bog standard questions that it was obvious. All of a sudden, third one's out of nowhere and something you wouldn't have thought of that gives a whole different spin to the prompt. And then the last one is T, task. And because it's multimodal now, tell it what you want. If you want a report, tell it you want a report. If you want a table, if you want an image, you've got to be very specific about what you want. And that acronym really kind of helps people, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. I do see prompting as something that is us problem as technology people long term. Like I can't imagine we'll be giving such precise prompting advice in 2 years.
How do you think it will change then?
I think your point of like it becomes the technology's job to find the context and you confirm it rather than go find it yourself, if that makes sense.
So that's the memory gets better and better, you won't have to tell it because it will know.
The precision again is less important because it understands and you've been using the same product and it has a better context of like where you are and what you're doing. Same with the output, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, you're asking me about a valuation report. I know that this is going to be an email to so and so, so I'll draft it in a format that can. Well, I'll probably send it to you for you, but maybe I'll draft it in a format you can copy and paste to Outlook as an example. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of that complexity will be abstracted away by the product layer.
Yeah.
However, there'll still forever be that really interesting spikiness of LLMs. People talk about the jagged edge of capability, where some things large language models and products driven by large language models are very good at. Some things are not. The classic one, obviously, being counting. But you can fix that by giving your large language model access to code so it can count properly.
Yeah, I think we're going to be surprised about how, because what I've always found is, like, take the strawberry thing where it can, that got solved, but everyone made such a big fuss about it then. And what I see is happening with these large language models, every time someone comes up with a barrier or a problem, it just gets solved in the next iteration. Yeah. And the big one at the moment, of course, is the fact that it's so confusing. What model do you use? You've got the reasoning models, you've got the small models, you've got the large models. And if rumours are to be believed, ChatGPT 5, which is coming out soon, is going to be a unified model, and that solves that problem, because it will work out what model to use based on the context and the prompt that you're giving it. Yeah. So there's another barrier gone down, and all I can see is barriers falling all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. The usability and the quality of UX around it, and I think also answering what a good user experience is with an intelligent computer. We're getting closer and closer to something that answers that.
Yeah, and the thing that surprised me a bit is that voice mode hasn't caught on more than it should have, because I think it's brilliant, and I think that goes back to the.
I'm 50-50 on this, so I have a few thoughts on this. Firstly, we've done quite a lot of research on how people feel about talking to their computers in the office. And there's like an exact 50-50 split of people who are like, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to talk to my computer. In fact, maybe I do in some form. To, I'm not talking to my computer in front of other humans or anyone around.
Do you know, is there a split in demographic for that? Is it older people that don't, or is it kind of uniform?
There's sort of you can make it look like it's actually older people who are more comfortable talking to their computers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that is
but it's not super statistic. I'm being a boring analyst here. It's not super significant statistically, but I think it's probably true.
Yeah, I think with a lot
I think
of
it's basically how would you. My internal thing is how likely would you be to like call someone up without texting them first?
Yeah, I think the thing that I like about
if you
the
are,
voice,
you're more likely to chat to a computer.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true, but it's faster. That's
the
thing for me. It's faster.
I have two really like weird quirks on this. First, like voice mode, like live chat with whatever, like Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever. It really frustrates me because obviously to get the speed, you lose intelligence in the model.
Yeah.
And so I find you always end up with like really generic, boring responses. And I literally find myself shouting at an AI, which is like old man shouts at clouds, right? Like I do, like, you know, I like experimenting with stuff when I'm cycling, for example, just sort of on my way home. And like, I'm sort of shouting at an AI to like stop telling me the same thing over and over again. But I use an app called Whisperflow, I think, where you hold down a key on your computer and it'll just transcribe into any box. And that's like best really of both worlds, because you can speak to your AI, but you get the intelligent, reasoned, useful response rather than the like, oh no.
The problem it's got at the moment is when you stop talking, it feels like it's got to respond. And that it doesn't mimic the human interaction. Because if we're talking now and you say something, from my body language, if you know I'm thinking about something, you'll know there's some silence there. But it doesn't do that, and that frustrates me.
It would be nice if it could be like, I'm going to take a minute to think about that and answer it well, rather than like the instant response.
And I'm sure that will come. But I just find it's prompted me to do a change of workflow. There's a few tools that have come out that has made me actually physically have to change the way I do things. Number one was voice mode, because I've got to, like, in the morning when I've got a load of things that's on my mind, I've got to make myself do it. And then the other thing is in the car. If I'm on a long journey, I can just chat GPT about something. So the other one is...
I don't drive much. So,
okay. So that's the best use case. And my kids are using it.
I'm always in a big city these days. Always in a big city, it seems. So like,
And the other one that's made me change the way I work is these generalized agents. So Operator and Manus. I'm in love with Manus. But that's forced me to do things differently. So when I start my day off and I plan all my tasks, and it's like, what have I got to do? I've got to think of Manus as another employee.
Yeah.
And I've got to give it things to do whilst I then go on to my call or whatever it is that I've got to do, and then come back. And like I would do with an intern or an employee, then look at its output and then send it back out again.
Yeah.
But that takes a change in workflow, and we're all creatures of habit. And that's
it's a
why I
big
think it's going to
shift,
be it's a big shift.
I would say our like power users have that pattern.
Yeah.
That they will like, I think of like usage of like traditional products as like maybe you're using Google, it's like a steady stream throughout the day, right? You just search for stuff every now and again, it's constant. But like our power users will kick off the 10 things they're going to work on that day. And then to your point, go to a meeting, come back to review it, refine it a bit, go do something else. And I'm seeing that pattern more and more, both in our customers and internally in our teams, actually, because as you could imagine, we are rather obsessed with AI productivity group of people. We have this concept of 10x professionals where it's from the engineering world, where we essentially are saying, what would it take to create enough leverage that you can have 10 times the impact without, versus what you can do today?
And I think that's entirely possible.
So I think that is possible as of last month.
Yeah.
Basically. I feel like we were at like 2.7. But with that pattern of like, okay, I'm going to fire off work, I'm going to manage the work rather than necessarily do it all. And the intelligence in the latest kind of wave of technology, it's getting, the sort of that dream of like really being able to have that huge impact is becoming much more realistic.
But it's a really important skill, because let's take project management.
Well, it's more than that though, because you have to, it's the entire workflow, right? For example, in our engineering team, and where this is, I would say in engineering, this is where it is furthest, right? Because the most money, frankly, is in automating software engineering. So all of the big model providers are optimizing for coding. The software is more, I think the user experience in software has got a lot further than in other domains. And also the developer tool set is much more contained and standardized. But if you say, okay, well, my engineering team, my CTO are going to work completely differently, we're like, well, if they're managing agents doing work, surely then they need how they pick what they do. It needs to change too, because they're going to run out of work. There'll be a product bottleneck. So I think for me, it's kind of with everything of like, it's to the point you were talking about earlier on workflows. It's kind of, as you start to think about working differently in one domain, you actually have to connect it together. And it's kind of like, where do you make these connections?
It's a paradigm shift. It becomes to the point where it becomes something totally different.
Yeah.
I was talking to a developer earlier today about their engineering team, and he said, well, we've been using Cursor, and it means that I can do a task 3 times faster than I used to. But this was, I'd be interested if you had the same thought. He says, after that period, I thought, what have I learned? I haven't actually learned anything. And he was worried that the kind of creativity skills that we're going to lose that, because we're using AI to do a lot of this stuff for us. Everything's going to become quite generic. And I'm not sure where I sit with that.
Well, you see, I am, data engineer, data scientist, product person. So I'm naturally going to say, well, you just do more product thinking. You build better products that people care about more and get more value from. Because I think Cursor features a lot in our engineering team, but I think the real game changer has been more Claude Code. Because it is much more in the agentic space. Although Cursor's brand new background agents are super powerful as well. They also achieve a similar
And that
thing.
keeps changing every
year. Like the best tool is like week by week it changes.
I know. They keep changing. So our data scientist keeps changing every couple of weeks. Can I use this one now? Because it's just got better. It's really hard to keep up. But if I take it into the project management context, I think one of the things that if you're a good project manager in construction, for instance, your skill is orchestrating your team. But now it's going to be about orchestrating agents as well. So I don't think anything's really different. It's just that you've got more power at your hands. And if you're a good project manager, you will learn how to orchestrate the AI as well as the humans. And a bad project manager won't, and they won't be able to leverage it. with Manus, the thing I want to do is just get the most out of my credits. So
Right,
I've got these credits. I'm going to use them.
The credits, yeah. I love it how the pricing structure becomes such an important driver.
I'm going to make sure I rinse these credits one way or another.
I must admit, I remember when the first deep research implementations came out, they were limited like 5 a month or something. Yeah. And it was like, how fast can I get through 5?
I love deep research. That's been a game changer for me. I've got a little hack that I do, which is when there's something I want to learn about, you do deep research, and then you stack that and put that output into Google, Notebook LM, and then learn, and then you just hear 2 people talking about it. It's amazing.
So you get
how
the
much
podcast
you can learn.
out,
it's brilliant. So if that's the little hack for your listeners, if you just want to learn about a subject, anything, try that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, Notebook LM into a podcast, and I think it's totally free as well.
Totally free. Yeah, I think really, for
in that
certain
Google
number.
way. Yeah. I suspect it's loads. So if you want a daily podcast, a few a week. Yeah, we've talked a lot about change and the pace of change, and there's lots of things around the corner. What are some of the things you're most interested in that are happening right now?
Well, there's obviously the new models. There's the rumours of ChatGPT 5, and like you said, Grok 4 just got released. So just keep an eye out there.
I feel like there's always new models.
There's always new models.
It's exciting, but it must be if you're less into AI, it must be quite exhausting. You're like, can you stop throwing names and numbers at me, please?
Yeah, so there'll be another step change at some point. I'm very interested in what's happening with physical AI, so robotics. I think that's a little way off yet, but in terms of my domain, I don't think it'll be too long before we start seeing these humanoid robots on construction sites and doing some of the really dangerous work.
Yes,
that humans shouldn't be doing.
That's the major payoff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's going to come. So I'm it's weird, that kind of is a step too far for most people. When I talk to a lot of people, they think I'm talking gobbledygook there.
Right. Okay.
Then you show them the videos of these humanoid robots in BMW factories, and they go, "Oh, okay, it is happening." So I'm quite excited about that. And then I think actually the thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, it's gone off press because it's had some bad press, is the whole XR VR experience. I think when that matures, combined with AI, is going to be really, really interesting for our space. But then, of course, there's the whole what's happening with browsers and how we actually interact with the internet. There's so many, Perplexity are doing things, and we're both big fans of the Arc browser.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how quaint it looks in a couple of years about how we use the internet now. I bet you it's going to be very different in a few years' time.
Yeah, the TLDR for listeners, I think, is that AI companies are starting to say, hey, actually, maybe we want to control your access to the internet because we can do things for you and help you and control it. And it's not just good enough using Chrome or Microsoft Edge. But it's quite taking on, particularly Google with Chrome in the browser wars, is quite a statement.
Yes, I think the models, they were late to the party, but I think now Gemini, everyone can say, is right up there with the others. And so if they put their resources, their basically unlimited resources into something, they're going to be very hard to knock off their perch. But you never know. Who would have thought that OpenAI? You'd still say OpenAI are the leading kind of company in terms of consciousness of AI.
Certainly brand and presence. I would perhaps put. I have a different ranking in my head of model performance for real estate.
Okay, that's it. What's your ranking?
It's probably Google, Anthropic, OpenAI.
Okay, interesting.
Of the top 3.
I am a big fan of the Claude model. I think they're fantastic.
I think with Google as well. So we're admittedly are very invested in Google in terms of, we work really closely with them. Our CTO is off at a Google conference on Thursday presenting about how we work with the platform. And as a sort of infrastructure provider, they have gone for this strategy that I would describe as we're not necessarily going to try and shoot for the very, very top performance, but we're going to be consistently very, very good, and we're just going to keep getting better and better and better. And we're going to be easy to work with, and we're going to care about the outcomes from our customers. And as a technology business, that makes them great to work with.
And they make it really familiar for people. I think that's the key thing. Everyone understands Google, they understand the environment. And, if you take their Office suite, I think that's in terms of usability, it's much nicer than the Microsoft suite.
Especially with collaboration.
Yeah,
But
hugely.
I feel like that's death ears for our audience, because everyone's so deep in the Microsoft ecosystem.
I know, it's such a shame. I've got
And
a
it
real
is hard.
problem.
It is emotionally difficult to shift from 10 years of Excel to Google Sheets.
It
Having done
is.
it in the past, it is a harrowing journey
It
when
definitely
you
is.
realise the shortcuts and the formulas are all slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah, I find Microsoft Word, I find the hardest one to get on with. So there needs to be, if they can come up with a better way of creating and writing, I think that would be good for everyone.
Yes, yeah. We spend a lot of time working with Office files, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
As that, those are the outputs everyone wants.
Yeah,
I want a
everyone's used to
PowerPoint, I want a spreadsheet, and I want a Word doc. I've yet to find anyone who's like a Google Doc output.
Really, there's some of the, I think PwC are like Google
Yeah.
House. I think there are some big players too, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it goes back to the culture. We can have the best tool in the world. That doesn't necessarily, I think
Well,
it's universally accepted that Word is really bad, but everyone uses it.
It's very wide. No, I feel like not many people love it, but it's very widely used.
It is,
It's like the reality that the world runs on Excel, and it's kind of fine.
Yeah.
There are problems with it, but it's better than not having Excel.
I think you probably
Better
understand
than
just
a
how
ledger.
much of the world gets run on Excel.
Yeah, I don't know.
More
I'm
than
pretty
anyone
eyes
thinks.
open. I feel like one thing I would predict is much less of the world will run on Excel in a couple of years.
I hope so. So
I think-
what do you think the difference will be?
Well, some of the stuff that we've been working on that I think is super exciting is kind of actually going as far as taking unstructured data and structuring it and letting it persist.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about, okay, the problem with Excel is that people use it as a database.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think, well, if you take all of the data that should be in a database and you can quickly and totally invisibly create that place to store it, then you get people out of Excel. You get all the benefits of actually structured data that you can analyze that's visible, that won't be randomly changed one cell at a time. But it's possible and realistic. So I think from a Excel as a database perspective, it won't be used like that, basically. But it's probably more than 2 years. I think for financial modeling, it's probably a bit different.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I think of spreadsheets as like data and code, and the formula and the model are the code, and the static numbers are the data.
It's weird because people, even if you go to a third-party system with a database, often people will then export that to a CSV.
Yes, quite.
You know, so it kind of goes in circles.
But the secret weapon that we have now is we can then take that CSV, even when it's been improved, and change the database to make it all work.
Yeah. Well, we live in hope.
Yes, absolutely. So, James, I'd love to leave the listeners with your kind of key takeaway, the one thing you would love people to be thinking or try or do differently, having listened to us chat about all things AI today. What would that be?
I think it's about the education and taking the responsibility on yourself to find out about this thing. Don't think that this is something that's going to happen. Don't let it happen to you. You can actually lead this. There's so many good resources out there. You know, all the big players, the Googles, the OpenAIs have got incredible guidance out there.
Unsurprisingly, Google's my favorite.
There you go.
They have some great free online courses.
Yeah, and a lot of good stuff on YouTube. So I would say to people, experiment. If you're not sure where to start and you feel like you haven't had your light bulb moment yet, I say to people, start by doing something which is safe and familiar to you. It doesn't have to be a work project. You might have a family holiday coming up. You might have a kitchen extension that you're planning, and try and utilize, build AI into that workflow, because you're in a safe space, you're not using confidential data, etc., and see how that works for you. And then hopefully you'll get some takeaways that you can then bring into work. But I think the key thing is it feels like a long time, lots of people talking about AI. No doubt lots of people have been to conferences and listening to podcasts. Nothing beats doing it, just getting on with it. These tools,
I totally agree.
They're there. A lot of them are free, or they get free packages. Just play around with it. You know, that's the best thing to do.
I was listening to the results of a survey in the US, and the highest penetration of AI was in parents. Yeah, which I thought.
Really? Okay.
And the thesis behind that was that they had tried these safe use cases for something related to their child, whether it was, I want to, the creative stuff, like, I'm trying to come up with a story, help me tell a story, whether it was, stuck on homework, let's try and work this out. Or creating an image together or something like that. I thought that was really interesting.
It is interesting because that's the thing people forget.
Also, managing the schedules of multiple children, like school holidays. Like, I think that's probably level 2, but yeah. I think the parents have a very raw need for some assistance there, right?
And it's exactly what it's meant to be, an assistant. So if it's helping, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, if it can help your life in some way, then that's good. It might be just helping you with a recipe. I've got these ingredients in my fridge. What can I've done that before. It's all I've got left. How can I put this together to make something useful? But the other thing I think we haven't really talked too much about is how creative it can be. So we're talking about it very much in a work context, but I've got a lot of friends who are in the creative industries, say music or video, graphic design. And it's incredibly powerful, but there's even more of a pushback in those industries because they feel that it's something taken away from an innate kind of human ability. But I've seen some incredible results where these people actually use AI as part of the creative process. Yeah. Really amazing.
It's kind of the things that you can do as artists, understanding, say, composition and different techniques and different styles is 100x what I could, for example.
Yeah. And it's not just handing it off. It's not just letting the AI do it. It's like, well, how can I almost think of it as working with the AI as a partner? Yeah. And that becomes really, really important. And the other thing I'd say is about data, which is a lot of people kind of feel that in a work context, I've got to get my data in order first. Yeah. And
I hear that. It's like we've just got to do a 7-year enterprise data warehouse project, and then we'll think about it.
And you'll never get there because you'll never get it perfect. So I always say, don't let great be the enemy of good. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter what state your data is in. There's still some easy wins you can get with it as it stands now, and don't let that kind of be an excuse to say your data's a mess, because everyone's data's a mess.
Exactly, and it's all in the documents. And someone has those documents somewhere.
Yeah,
they might be in a basement, in a drawer somewhere, but they do exist, and someone in your organization knows where they are. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I really loved this conversation.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.